Good afternoon and welcome to the Guidelines for Cross-Program Consolidated Monitoring Process recording. My name is Jennifer Smith and I am a Program Administrator for the Northwest region of the state. I'm going to let my colleagues introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Paul Peretta, and I'm a Program Administrator, Consolidated Programs for the Western Region.
Hi, my name is Tim Dryman, and I am the Southwest Region's Program Administrator and also the state's Title 4A Academic Enrichment Grant Coordinator.
Wonderful. So for the purpose of today's recorded presentation is to provide a high-level overview of our office's cross-program consolidated monitoring process from start to finish. In reviewing this process, we will discuss the scope and purpose of monitoring, how your PSU can share compliance documentation for review, and how your PSU should develop a visit agenda and prepare for our team's on-site visits and interviews. Lastly, we will review the monitoring report, which will provide a rating of each of our 22 elements. Today's agenda does not review each of the elements on the monitoring instrument tool. So if you're seeking additional information regarding that tool, please refer to a separate series of recorded technical assistance webinars, which provides a very thorough walkthrough of that tool. All right, I'm going to start by going over the scope and purpose of monitoring. Federal and state policy requires that the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, who serves as the state education agency for grants authorized under the Every Student Succeeds Act, monitors the quality and effectiveness of programs operating with the use of federal funds as authorized under the law. While our work is legislatively required, compliance monitoring is also the foundation for identifying areas of ways we can support and improve your local programs. Through cooperative assessment of your programs, we can work to improve the quality of services that will be strengthened and improved. The Office of Federal Programs team utilizes monitoring events to answer questions, facilitate dialogue, and exchange ideas and information for program improvement, while at the same time meeting all of the federal requirements. Our state education agency uses a 4-year monitoring cycle for all PSUs who receive federal grants. We utilize a risk assessment to analyze and determine which level and what year within the 4-year cycle your PSU will receive a cross-program monitoring event. This risk assessment includes 6 key components listed on this slide: the amount of your PSU's Title I funds, how many years it has been since you were last monitored, how many federal program grants you receive, the number of compliance findings from your last monitoring event, the percentage of CSI identified schools within your district, and the years your federal program director and chief financial officer have been in place. Each component receives a rubric score between 1 and 5, and then a weighting is applied that results in an index score for each public school unit and charter school. The scope of the monitoring that you receive depends on the grants in which you participate. In addition, the cross-program consolidated monitoring will consider your participation in other programs addressed by ESSA, such as Title I pre-kindergarten, homeless education programs, targeted school improvement or comprehensive school improvement programs, and equitable services for private schools. Other ESSA grants and related programs which a PSU might participate in, such as the ESSER or IDEA grants, does not fall within the scope of this cross-program consolidated monitoring process. Our CPCM monitoring instrument tool can be found at the Office of Federal Programs webpage and is linked on the slide here. Before we talk about the monitoring protocol in greater detail, we're going to begin by sharing an overview or timeline that is applicable to how the cross-program monitoring event process unfolds. Each PSU is notified of the month of their upcoming monitoring event the summer prior to the school year. Then an official notification letter is emailed to each PSU at least 30 days prior to the official start of the monitoring event. All required documentation must be submitted the Thursday prior by 5 p.m., a week before the scheduled on-site visit date. Your district will also be notified of the schools that will be selected to be visited. These are randomly selected with a minimum of 4 Title I schools that will be visited depending on the size of your PSU. Your PSU should then review our other monitoring instrument video resources and participate in a pre-monitoring virtual meeting with your lead program administrator to resolve any questions. The on-site visit will be on the Thursday during the week of your monitoring event, and all reports will be issued to your PSU within 30 days of the monitoring event. This is just a visual graphic showing the timeline for the cross-program monitoring timeline. The Office of Federal Programs has organized the key provisions of ESSA into 22 compliance elements that form the basis of our process. The accompanying monitoring instrument tool describes each of the elements in detail and provides examples of the type of documentation you'll be asked to provide to our office during the monitoring process. I'm now going to review how each PSU will share electronic documentation for review during your monitoring event. Each PSU is responsible for providing evidence of compliance within the statutes cited on the monitoring instrument tool. Some of the elements or portions of the elements might not apply to your PSU determined by which programs you participate in. Your lead program administrator can help identify those areas where you will not be required to produce evidence. The Office of Federal Programs has moved all documentation submission to the SharePoint electronic platform. Access to your district's SharePoint folders for the monitoring event are automatically provided to your superintendent or board chair for charter schools and your PSU's federal program director. Within your district SharePoint folder, there is one parent folder for each of the 22 elements on the monitoring instrument tool that have already been created for you. If your district or school uses an external platform such as Google Drive to maintain documentation, our office has created a video reference guide to show you how to transfer these documents into our SharePoint platform. Some of the elements from the monitoring tool are rather large or might require documents to be submitted from each of the selected Title I schools that will be visited during your monitoring event. For those elements where school-based documents are likely to be required, this will be clearly indicated on the monitoring instrument column titled Supporting Documentation. Sample supporting documentation is divided into a district heading for items applicable to the whole district, or district selected schools, or for charter/lab schools for further clarification. However, we do ask that subfolders will be created within each of the 22 element parent folders for any school-based documentation. This allows for ease of navigation and clarity for the program administrator reviewing your documentation. How each PSU maintains documentation of activities varies greatly across the state. It can be a paper record, electronic records, photographs of events, meeting minutes, lesson plans, tutor records, schedules, written policies, and procedures. We encourage all PSUs to ensure that documentation is maintained on a continual basis within the 4-year cycle and filed in alignment to the monitoring tool to ease the burden of producing this documentation during the month of your monitoring event. For a few general guideline reminders, please ensure that all records are dated and identifiable by your district or school. Ensure that documentation can demonstrate activities, actions, results, agenda topics, and all meetings identify the names of participants as well as their role or group represented. These simple tips ensure program administrators can easily understand your submitted files. Here are a few additional compliance documentation best practices. If one document satisfies more than one element, it should still be uploaded into all applicable folders. This may seem redundant, but it makes it easier for all parties to keep track of what has been shared and reviewed. You should only submit your most recent or current documentation. We do not need files from years prior unless it is needed to support an activity that might not yet have occurred this year. Please do not create documents with narratives as evidence simply because you do not have something to upload within that parent folder. Clarifying information can be added to an existing documentation if you believe it would provide additional context for the reviewer. There is also no need to upload documents for any element that does not apply to your district or school. Those element parent filters can remain empty. This is just a screenshot showing the monitoring instrument tool. You should utilize this tool as a guide when collecting and deciding which documentation to be uploaded for compliance into each of the applicable folders. One of the questions we get most frequently from districts is how much documentation they need to upload to demonstrate compliance. Your PSU is not required to provide an exhaustive set of one particular kind of document. For example, to demonstrate a particular group, like your school improvement team, has met 12 times during the year, your PSU may supply the artifacts related to only one or two of those meetings, as long as those artifacts reflect what is described in the given element. Artifacts from all other meetings might not need to be uploaded. However, to provide a more comprehensive view of your district's efforts, you could upload a calendar or a schedule showing the other meeting dates of this team. If you have any questions about how much documentation to submit, please contact your lead program administrator who can answer any questions. Lastly, when is all this electronic documentation due? All documents must be uploaded into SharePoint no later than 5 p.m. on the date listed on page 1 of your guidelines, which is the Thursday prior to the date of your on-site visit. It's very imperative you flag or highlight this deadline, as SharePoint file access will be locked after that date and time. Any rating on for your applicable elements on your monitoring report will be based on documents that are submitted by the deadline, and late documentation will not be reviewed. Your PSU staff should consult with your lead program administrator with any questions you have about documentation submission. I'm now going to turn over the presentation to my colleague, Tim Dryman, to review how to prepare for your school visits and your interviews.
Hello, everyone. We will now review the process for the pre-selected school visits. The morning part of the day will include informal visits to the pre-selected schools. The walking tours of the schools will last approximately 40 to 45 minutes. They will include the visiting team from federal programs, the principal, and any other school team member the principal would like to invite. The focus of the visit will be to see how federal funds are being implemented at the school. This will include classrooms led by Title I funded teachers and tutors, and any initiatives funded by federal programs such as STEM labs, level libraries, etc. These visits should not cause a school to alter their daily routine. For example, a school-wide assembly that coincides with the visit should take place as planned. Once the Title I director is notified of the schools to be visited, they will begin to develop the agenda for the on-site visit. Based on the locations of the selected schools, the director will determine the best order in which to visit the selected schools that will minimize travel time between schools to maximize time at school sites. Please include the address of the location where the afternoon meetings will be held. The meetings times for parents, teachers, and principals are flexible, and those meetings should be scheduled in a manner that works with the district's daily schedule. The only meeting that is not time flexible is the central office/leadership team meeting. It is best to keep this meeting as the last of the day to best summarize the observations of the day. Once the agenda has been finalized, please return the agenda to your lead program administrator. For charters and labs, your day will begin at 11 a.m. with the school tour and follow with the designated afternoon schedule on the agenda. Similar to districts, the schedule will be flexible for parents and teachers, with the day ending with school leadership. Some additional information for the school visits. Take into consideration school locations, traffic, construction, and other obstacles that would take away from time at each school. An optional component of the visit, the selected school principal can prepare a brief, no more than 5-minute review of their school-wide Title I plan. The visit should focus on how the school is utilizing their federal funds to address learning loss and closing achievement gaps. Highlights should include classrooms led by Title I funded teachers, teacher assistants, and tutors, STEM labs, level libraries, etc. If the schools have Title I funded pre-K classrooms, visiting one or two of those classrooms should be included during the tour. We will now review the preparation for the afternoon stakeholder interviews. A portion of the on-site visit will consist of stakeholder interviews. The purpose of the interviews are to see how knowledgeable stakeholders are about federal funds, their knowledge of how federal funds are used at their schools, and what role do stakeholders play in the planning, development, and implementation of those funds and their school plan. The director or charter representative should ensure that sign-in sheets are available for each group. Each interview segment will take no longer than 50 minutes. These meetings are strictly confidential in the sense that no names are recorded as to who made statements about certain questions. Directors and charter representatives should reassure participants of that to allow for free-flowing conversation. Ensure that one central location is designated for all visits, and the selected room should be able to accommodate the largest group, and technology is available for parents who may not be able to attend in person. Teachers, principals, and leadership are required to attend in person. Charter leadership, who may be located in another state, will be able to attend by video format. When contacting stakeholders to participate in the meetings, please reassure stakeholders that this is a routine monitoring process that occurs once every 4 years, and that the process focuses on PSU practices, not on school or staff members. The interviews will be documented with notes and sign-in sheets, but none of the comments or discussion will be attributed to specific participants. You will see on the slide some examples of the types of questions that will be asked for each group. Please inform participants that anonymity is important to the process and that they should feel comfortable speaking freely to the federal program team. This is a true supportive process and should not be seen as an opportunity to catch any wrongdoing. For parent groups, there should be 2 to 4 parents per selected Title I school. The director is welcome to invite more parents from those schools and also invite parents from other Title I schools. Ensure translators are present if an EL parent is participating and requires a translator. Also ensure that virtual platform opportunities are available for those parents who may not be able to attend in person. The director should plan and coordinate face-to-face participation with parents as much as possible. Parents who are employees of the school or PSU, employees of companies who may be contracted by the school or PSU, or members of the local Board of Education should not be selected for participation. Parents who are members of the school leadership team, the PTO, or volunteer to school will be allowed to participate. For the principal group, attendance is mandatory for the principals of the selected schools. The director is welcome to invite other Title I and non-Title I principals to speak to other federal funded programs such as Title II, Title III, and Title IV-A if their schedules allow participation. The teacher group will consist of 2 to 4 teachers from each of the selected schools. The director is welcome to invite more teachers to participate. When selecting teachers, please ensure a wide spectrum of teachers from various grade levels, special classes, media specialists, counselors, interventionalists, EL, and EC teachers. Please do not select teachers who serve as instructional coaches or facilitators. Please reach out to your lead program administrator prior to the on-site visit if you have any questions about who could be included in the teacher group. For the central office leadership group, any person who is involved in the development, planning, implementation, and budgeting of consolidated title funds at this level should be included in this group. The central office leadership group will be scheduled for the end of the day. The purpose for this is to summarize discussions from the focus groups, school visit observations, and the logistics and procedures of the reporting process, which will follow the on-site visit. This time will also be utilized for questions the group may have for the federal program team. Superintendents for districts and board chairs for charters and labs are not required to attend, but are highly welcome to participate. I will now turn it over to my colleague, Paul Parada.
All right. In this section, we will review element ratings and the monitoring report. Element ratings. There are three possible ratings that apply to each element. The ratings consist of meets requirement with recommendation, or a finding. Non-applicable will also be issued to any of the 22 elements not part of the PSU's monitoring event. Meets requirements. Requirements means compliance. Compliance often occurs when documentation, observed practices, interviews, plans, and implemented activities align and verify evidence for compliance. When meeting requirements and compliance, good job, and continue implementing those activities to sustain and improve and impact not only compliance, but student achievement. Meets requirement with recommendations also means compliance. However, in this case, the Office of Federal Programs has provided insight and recommendations for how compliance and programming may be further strengthened. Findings. Findings reveal that compliance has not been met, and the PSU must take further action to comply. Examples of findings include incomplete documentation, such as an agenda without a date or the required participants, or hosting an event without fulfilling the essential purpose of that event, or not implementing the necessary activities. Inconsistency during interviews and with required practices may also result in a finding. If you have questions or need support about a finding, contact the PA who led the monitoring event and they can further assist you. The monitoring report. PSUs will receive the official monitoring report within 30 business days after the close of the monitoring event. The report will include a rating for every applicable element. If a PSU receives a finding or several findings, corrective actions and documentation uploads will be required by the PSU. Such responses by the PSU are not required for elements that meet requirements or meets requirements with recommendation. So how to respond to a report with findings? As mentioned, PSUs will receive an official report within 30 business days after the event. The PSU now must respond to each item marked as a finding within 30 business days of receiving the report, and that specific date will be identified within the report. The Office of Federal Programs will provide a link to the PSU to access their findings folder in SharePoint. As you can see, the blue star, the findings folder, can be found under element 22. The PSU can also create subfolders by element for each folder and upload the required documentation and evidences to the applicable folder. You can see the example, and in this case, element 13, 14, 15, and 21 are examples of findings for a PSU, and those subfolders can be found in the findings folder. The PSU should use the action steps, information in the report narrative to assist with corrective actions, documentation, and required activities to move into compliance. Closing letters. Findings must be resolved for compliance and for next year's allotments and consolidated application of funds in CCIP. Once the findings are resolved, the PSU will receive an official letter to signify statutory compliance and the closing of the monitoring event for the applicable 4-year cycle. Now, for some final reminders, back to Jenny.
Great. Thank you, Tim and Paul, for reviewing this part of the monitoring protocol. Before we sign off this afternoon, we wanted to point out some additional resources to help you prepare for your monitoring visit. there are 2 required videos. Required video number 1 is the one that you're currently watching. So congratulations on completing that first required video. The second required video covers our monitoring instrument tool, the consolidated program monitoring elements, which are elements 1 through 5. Additionally, we have a series of optional recorded videos. These cover the rest of the elements on the monitoring instrument tool. You will only need to watch the appropriate videos that cover the elements that that cover the programs that your PSU is participating in. You can find a list of those recordings here, and all of these videos are now on the Office of Federal Programs webpage. Thank you for viewing our video presentation on the Monitoring Guidelines Protocol. We cannot wait to get out and visit your PSU and selected schools. We look forward to seeing all the wonderful things occurring in your district. If you have any questions or need to contact anyone from the Office of Federal Programs team, please reach out via email and we will assist you in the best way we can. Have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.